Hello, and welcome to Particle Word for Word, the podcast where we bring Particle WA's stories to life. I'm your host, Morgan Knoxley. Today, we're heading into one of the most fascinating unsolved mysteries in science, and it starts in the vast, ancient landscapes of Australia. Picture this: massive wombat-like creatures the size of cars, towering flightless birds taller than a grown man, marsupial lions, giant kangaroos, enormous snakes, even a version of the goanna that could grow up to 7 metres long. Australia once teemed with giant animals. We call them megafauna. But then, they vanished. Gone. Extinct. And the question that's puzzled scientists for decades is, why? This isn't just about the past, it's about the patterns that repeat across time, because when entire species vanish from the Earth, there's usually more than one reason. Was it the changing climate? Was it fire? Or did the arrival of humans tip the balance? The more we study extinction, the more we realise it's rarely a single cause. It's a web of events, overlapping and influencing each other, just like ecosystems themselves. And yet, in all this uncertainty, we still find clues. Preserved footprints, fossilised bones, burnt trees, changes in soil, echoes of stories once told by the land. These fragments help scientists piece together a much bigger picture, one that might reveal not just what happened, but what's still possible. Because even now, in the 21st century, we're learning that the past doesn't stay buried. It shapes how we see the present. It teaches us how fragile and how interconnected life really is. And maybe the most haunting part of all is how much of this story feels familiar. Because while the megafauna are long gone, the conditions that drove them to extinction, they're not. The article we're about to hear is called The Megafauna Mystery. It was written and read by Kat Williams and originally published on Particle WA. Let's hear it now.
The Megafauna Mystery, Australia's 40,000-year-old cold case. A long, long time ago, marsupials the size of small trucks, 2-metre-tall thunderbirds, and 5-metre-long venomous lizards roamed Australia. These animals and more were Australia's megafauna. Megafauna have always existed in Australia, but around 2.5 million years ago, they became enormous. The largest of these animals existed during a period of time known as the Pleistocene epoch. This Pleistocene megafauna became extinct between 60,000 and 20,000 years ago. Hundreds of megafauna fossils have been discovered over the past decade. Scientists are unearthing growing evidence to answer the question, how did these megabeasts die out? A slow demise. There's one thing researchers agree on: these massive animals did not die in a massacre-type event. It was a very slow demise over 10,000 years or so. However, this is where much of the agreement ends. There are 3 main theories about how the megafauna extinction occurred. One theory is that climate change is to blame, another that humans hunted them to death, and another that climate change and humans played a role. The hunt is on. Dr. Aaron Kamens is a paleontology lecturer at Flinders University. He has studied megafauna for 20 years and believes humans played a primary role in their extinction. It seems ridiculous to think that if there were large, slow-moving sources of protein wandering around, humans wouldn't have hunted them, says Aaron. It's not like people went and vindictively killed every single animal they came across, but they disturbed an equilibrium. Megafauna was slow at reproducing. They were in balance with the environment, but when humans arrived, this balance changed. This could make them vulnerable to extinction. If First Nations people hunted one juvenile diprotodon per year in a small area, this could cause their extinction across 1,000 to 10,000 years, Aaron says. It's an almost imperceptible decline across a human lifetime, says Aaron. Climate killings? Anthony DeSetto is a geochemistry professor who dates megafauna fossils to determine their age. Anthony says humans and climate may have contributed to the megafauna's demise. I'm sure humans play a role, says Anthony, but I'm personally not convinced there's evidence that we should exclude climatic and environmental change. Anthony dated some fossils from South Walker Creek, inland from Mackay in Queensland. The research paper dated fossils from 34,000 to 40,000 years ago. The same team found and dated megafauna kangaroo fossils, which were only 20,000 years old. This was confirmed independently by another lab. This date aligns with the last glacial maximum, the most recent time period when ice sheets were at their largest. This young fossil provides evidence of climate playing a part in the megafauna extinction. It's kind of weird because everybody is supposed to have kicked the bucket, says Anthony. This finding is going to rub a few people the wrong way. He believes climate and humans contributed. They don't need to be mutually exclusive. Megadeaths. Dr. Kenny Trevelyan is the curator of mammals at the West Australian Museum. I feel like there's not enough data yet to say it's one or the other, and the reality is it's probably a mix of both, says Kenny. But he says this isn't the case for every megafauna species. Some megafauna, like the giant horned turtle-type creature Ninjamus oweni, died out before humans arrived in Australia. Kenny has found megafauna fossils, including Diprotodon, that have been dated to 100,000 years old at sites, including Debule Creek in the Pilbara. That's way too early for humans, says Kenny. Kenny believes that a few years of drought could knock out some individuals in a population. Eventually, populations would become so small that a species could die out. It doesn't mean that humans didn't have a play, says Kenny. There's at least 20 megafauna that could have overlapped with humans. It's in the bones. WA is an expansive state and has diverse environments from the top to the bottom. This creates a few challenges for the megafauna record. You can't take one spot in WA and say it's the same everywhere, says Kenny. It's not fair to extrapolate to the whole continent because we don't have the data to do that. The tropics are terrible for our fossil record because bones don't preserve well, says Aaron. It's not that the megafauna weren't there, it's just that we don't know what was there and when they went extinct. Unlike the tropical regions, the southwest region has an excellent fossil record. Up for debate. The southwest has such excellent megafauna fossil records that a 2010 research paper declared that caves in the area provided solid evidence that humans were to blame for megafauna extinction. This is a super important site for understanding continent-wide extinction of megafauna because it shows us that these species are resilient to changes in climate, says Aaron. From the records in southwest WA, there seems to be a fairly strong indicator that climate wasn't playing a large role in extinction. It's more likely to have been a human-driven factor. Kenny begs to differ. Tyler Faith, Kenny and colleagues reanalysed the data from the study and found the climate was changing at that time too. So, the debate rages on. The jury is out. If the megafauna murder case went to trial today, the jury would have insufficient evidence. So, what evidence do we need to close a 40,000-year-old cold case? Aaron and Kenny agree on this: butchery sites. In other continents there's evidence of humans butchering animals, says Kenny. In Australia, we have none, like zero, not even one. If there's no record of humans hunting these animals, it's difficult to prove they were involved. Kenny says undiscovered butchery sites may exist. We may find butchery sites in the future, he says. If we found a butchery site in one area, that doesn't mean that megafauna are being butchered in all areas, says Aaron. We need multiple sites from multiple different locations, different climate zones, and different vegetation types. So, while this mystery is ancient, it may be early days yet.
That was the Megafauna Mystery by Cat Williams. There's something powerful about a mystery that spans tens of thousands of years, isn't there? We don't have surveillance footage, or written records, or eyewitnesses. Just traces, shadows, hints in the dirt and bones and charcoal. But even with so little, we can still ask, what happened here? Who lived and who died? And what tipped the balance? What I find really striking is how this article reminds us that extinction isn't a clean break. It doesn't happen in an instant. It's a process, sometimes slow, sometimes fast, always complex. And when we talk about the disappearance of megafauna, we're also talking about fire regimes, climate shifts, migration patterns, and the arrival of people. What happens when a new species, like us, enters an ecosystem that's never encountered anything quite like it before? Do we adapt? Do we overstep? Or do we change things so drastically that other species can't keep up? This story doesn't give us easy answers, but it does give us a chance to reflect, to ask ourselves, how are we shaping the world today? What species are on the edge now? What changes are we introducing, knowingly or not, that could echo for generations? And what responsibility do we have to learn from the past? It's not about blame, it's about understanding. Because if we know how species disappeared before, maybe, just maybe, we can stop it from happening again. The megafauna may be gone, but the questions they leave behind are very much alive. That's it for this episode of Particle Word for Word. If you'd like to read the full article or explore more stories like this one, head to particle.scitech.org.au.